Okay, this is the final run through. This is what I'm going to do before I go to bed. Alright. Before I started this project, I was going through some difficult things, as y'all might imagine, like, college admissions and which college I was going to go to, and I was making some difficult decisions, and I thought this project would actually be a good way for me to escape from it a bit, maybe even a time to reflect on, like what has brought me to this point and what has shaped me into the person I am today. So I looked through some of my old stuff, and I immediately found this giant collection of Winnie the Pooh stories, and I flipped through it, and I thought to myself, wow, this is exactly the same as I remembered it. Like, it still has the same magic, it still has the same charm to it. And I thought that was kind of weird, because when you look at some of the things in your childhood, like movies you enjoyed or books or shows or whatever, you it just becomes lost on you. Like, it loses its charm. It's not the same anymore. It never really was all that great once you look back on it again. But Winnie the Pooh was not like that. I thought it was kind of a weird phenomenon. There's either like something scientific going on or something paranormal. So I looked it up a bit. Like, I did some more research, and I ended up on A.A. Milne's biography, and I found out that he didn't write for just children. He wrote for adults too. He believed that everyone is a bit of a child on the inside, and everyone remembers what it was like to be a child. And he wanted to just kind of bring it out on all of us. Like, adults will read Winnie the Pooh to their children, and children will listen to Winnie the Pooh from their parents, and they'll understand it just the same. A lot of his personal philosophy is made into his books, and at this point, I think it's a good idea for me to go a bit deeper into his life. And to begin, he was kind of an extraordinarily ordinary man. Like, his hobbies included reading and writing, so it was a generally very unexciting life, an unexciting person, but his philosophies still hold, and that's kind of the more important aspects of his life. To give you a time frame, he was born in 1986, and he died in 1957. So he lived a full life. He had a younger brother, mother, father, pretty standard. He grew up in England, and one of his mentors was actually H.G. Wells. So he had a huge writing background, and he wrote throughout his entire life. When he went to college, he went and studied for a mathematics degree, but during his time there, he wrote for the newsletter and the newspaper and wrote articles and everything. After he graduated, he went on to write for a magazine called Punch, which was a humor and satire magazine, and he wrote articles for it. That is where he met E.H. Shepard, who was the illustrator for all of his children's books. Shortly after, he would go on to World War I, where he suffered a couple of injuries and illnesses, and he could no longer fight. So he chose to write propaganda for the Royal Army instead. After the war, he married his wife, and together they had a child called Christopher Robin Milne. The story behind Christopher Robin's middle name, Robin, is they expected to have a girl while he was still in the womb, but he came out a guy, so they tacked it on as a middle name. That is where the character Christopher Robin comes from, and that is kind of his inspiration for a lot of his writings. He wrote for his son, he wrote a collection of poetry, and shortly after, when he was around 6, he he published another collection of poetry. And he was a major influence for like his published work, all of his work, and between that time, most of his writing was for children. And after World War II, he started writing plays, which were pretty well received. People found them humorous, people liked them, and although they're not put on big productions anymore, they're still done in small theaters, which gather crowds. And some of the other works he's done after World War II included screenplays and novels and more poetry. He wrote a variety of things which many people might not know. I certainly didn't know before I started studying him. He wrote detective novels. He wrote all sorts of things for any person. And my project kind of dealt with his life, or it did deal with his life actually, but since he didn't have any major life events like illnesses or major deaths that impacted him, the most important inspiration in his life was Christopher Robin, who found himself in the Winnie the Pooh series. So I thought the perfect way to represent his life is through Winnie the Pooh, which Christopher Robin was a huge part of, and perfect all around. Anyways, what this is it's a short story I made based on his writings in his collection. So it lists a couple of events, but what I really wanted to capture was what A.A. Milne believed in. So one of the reasons he wrote was to be remembered. He wanted to leave something on this earth that people would remember him by, and he's done quite a good job of it. To this day, Winnie the Pooh is still one of the best selling children's stories, and it has been since it was published. And today we see Disney, what Disney has done with it. They've made films, they've made books, they made shows, and yeah. Anyways, I'm not gonna read it to you because it's not quite the same without the voices, and the only voice I can do is Eeyore, and you don't really want to hear that. It's a bit taxing on all of us, so I'm gonna leave it at that. What the man believes in was unlocking the child in all of us. He wanted us to be happy, to live our lives like Pooh Bear did. Thank you.